Hello, my name is Angela Singer. I'm going to be sharing with you my teaching portfolio. I'd like to start with my teaching philosophy that includes all students deserve the opportunity to capitalize on a strong foundation in critical thinking and composition. Our students come to us with different aptitudes, different educational backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, and in order to level the playing field between all of those differences, we have to provide for our students an opportunity to learn how to think critically and how to write to meet academic expectations. Many years ago, I heard the quote, "You must build a bridge of trust that can withstand the weight of truth." And as all of you know, writing is very personal. It comes from our hearts, it comes from our minds, and because of that, it's like our babies. And even with the kindest intentions, it is sometimes hurtful for someone to give even constructive criticism. So it's important in my teaching philosophy to build that bridge of trust, that students can trust that I have their best interests at heart. They can trust that I'm going to speak with them from kindness and from belief in their abilities to improve and be successful in my course. I'm going to give them the tools they will need in order to be successful, and that is the bridge of trust that can then withstand the weight of truth that can sometimes be painful. And the composition pedagogies that I adhere to in my classroom are critical pedagogy, which is more an embedded underlying attitude than it is truly a composition teaching method in my classroom, but something that I always keep in mind, that in order for students to change their societies through writing, through rhetoric, through critical thinking, they have to have the tools in place to do so. And that drives what I do in the classroom, even though it's not really a method of teaching in my classroom. Genre pedagogy, though, is, because in order to level that playing field, as I've mentioned before, students must know what the academic expectations are, and they have to be able to meet those expectations in order to be successful in their educational careers as well as their future professional careers. One of the strongest pedagogies to which I adhere is process pedagogy, and you'll see as I discuss with you the writing assignments as well as the lesson plans that go along with those assignments, how important writing process is in my course. So the composition course begins with learning outcomes to summarize and paraphrase a variety of texts to demonstrate understanding and to scaffold for analyzing, interpreting, and evaluating. Students will analyze, interpret, and evaluate a variety of texts for the ethical and logical use of evidence, and they eventually must write in a style that clearly communicates meaning, builds credibility, and inspires belief or action. So with those learning outcomes in mind, the first assignment in my sequence of writing assignments is a summary assignment, followed by a social analysis assignment that I'll speak to again in just a moment, then a rhetorical analysis assignment, and finally an evaluation synthesis writing assignment. And you can see how each of these builds on the one that comes before it. I had to tell you about my textbook. I stumbled upon this book online. I think it follows my teaching philosophy, including the pedagogies that I adhere to in teaching, and you can see how closely this aligns, how each of the chapters aligns with the assignments that I had created before I had found the textbook. So I was really excited about this great find. Writing About Writing by Elizabeth Wardle and Doug Downs. Chapter 1 is literacies. Where do your ideas about reading and writing come from? And this is the chapter from which students will select two Articles to academic articles. Each chapter has 6 to 8 academic articles written by professionals, and they will summarize one of those 2 articles. After reading Chapter 2, Individual in Community, How do Texts Mediate Activities, this is where they will write their social analysis, and you can see where that embedded, that underlying critical pedagogy fits into Chapter 2. How can students use reading and writing to change their societies? Chapter 3, Rhetoric, How is Meaning Constructed in Context? And after reading Chapter 3, students will write a rhetorical analysis. We'll talk about this writing assignment in detail in just a moment. And Chapter 4, Processes, How are texts composed? And here they'll learn more about the writing process, their own writing process, their personal writing process. And then finally, the last paper they'll write, the evaluation synthesis. Students will be asked to determine which compositional pedagogies they believe are most essential in composition instruction, and they will evaluate and synthesize articles on that particular writing pedagogy. So just to let you see how I scaffold the assignments, this is a clip from the syllabus and analysis 2 assignment, the rhetorical analysis assignment. I would expect that students to be able to complete that assignment in 7 class periods, so 3.5 weeks, as you can see from the clip on the left side of your screen. On the right side, I've listed the 6 academic articles, so you just get an idea of what our textbook will look like and what students can find there for the information that they will then analyze. So for each writing assignment, students will receive an assignment sheet that has each of these components. You can look at that in detail as you like. I'm going to look at just a few of the highlights from this particular assignment sheet for the rhetorical analysis so that I can better demonstrate for you how my writing course and the assignments do demonstrate the compositional pedagogies to which I adhere. So first, after students receive their writing prompt, then for each writing assignment, they will have a list of questions to consider. So as I think about my students as they come into the classroom, they haven't all had the same background in critical reading. So I've provided up to 10 questions to consider for students to use to learn how to read critically so that they can work at the same level as their peers who might have had more instruction in that area. They can use these questions to consider both as they read and then as they move into discussions in small peer groups. And you'll see how that works in the process of writing in each assignment. So considering genre pedagogy, I provide for each writing assignment some organization guidance. You can see how very specifically I've given students instruction in what the introduction should be comprised of, the body, and the conclusion. Of course, we would have an assignment in the classroom that goes into more detail over each genre that the students will be writing, but they have this summary in their assignment sheet for each of the writing assignments as well. And finally, I think this may be the most important part. I've broken down for you each of those dates that you saw in the clip from the syllabus earlier. The first 2 class periods of this writing workshop are class discussion, where students will break into small groups and discuss the text that they've selected from any particular chapter, and this is again for the rhetorical analysis assignment, so the chapter over rhetoric. So they'll spend 2 days. They've got multiple handouts to use during the discussion process. Then we will come to class with a rough draft written, and students will bring 3 print copies so that they can work with peers on revision. And this is an example. On the left, you'll see my lesson plan for workshop 3. This would be the third part of that writing process after students have discussed with their peers. And the handout for workshop 3, in which students will do a peer review in the classroom. and then be able to use that peer review as they continue working on their writing process. Then students will have an opportunity for reflection. How did the rhetorical analysis writing, drafting portion go? How did their peer response activities impact how they revised and completed their writing? A day of editing, which would be accompanied by another handout. And finally, students will be responsible for bringing in a final draft. And I would like for them to turn their final draft in with pre-writing, rough drafts, and the revision activities as well. So a brief portfolio for each writing assignment. So I hope I've been able to explain to you what my compositional teaching philosophy entails and shown you how my pedagogies, the pedagogies to which I adhere, drive each of the writing assignments in my course. Thank you.